Guys, we're back after 3 weeks of absence with Jumpstart Monday, and today's episode is about creating a team that performs. Please let me know if you can hear me well, first and foremost. And secondly, please let me know if you're here. Let's see, we're broadcasting live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, guys. LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And we also have a prize today. If you do like this episode and share it either now live or later on, that's recorded, you do get a chance to win a one-on-one with me coaching and mentoring for 1 hour. So guys, if you're here, just let me know if you can hear me to make sure that everything is okay. Just drop me a yes, so I'll know that the sound is okay, since I'm doing this on my own today. And let's see who's here. Kalimera, Athena. Kalimera, Rokas, Athens. Can you hear me? Can you hear me well? Just to make sure before we start. Waiting for people to come in. Good morning. We can hear you loud and clear. Vaso Vardagi, thank you very much. Always prompt, always fast. Good morning, guys. Ευτυχία is here as well. Clear. Kalimera, Stella, Aristos Panteli, Leonidas. Everyone is here. Thank you, guys. Loud and clear. So guys, today we're talking about creating teams that perform. I often get asked, how can I help my team perform better, communicate better, and even work together better? And this was the recent topic of a workshop that I've given in Athens just a week ago to a company that turns over €1 billion. And we were discussing the exact same thing. So would you like to take a guess? Which is the thing that helps teams perform together, collaborate, and communicate better together? Which is the one thing that can help your team become a solid team, a more harmonious team? Take a guess. I'm waiting for you because I know there is a delay in getting the message of a few seconds. The sound is perfect. Good morning, Iakovos, Antonia, Aristos, Tonia, Dimitris, Andreas Chrisouliodis. So guys, which is, before I go into it, trust. You have found the solid foundations. Yes, it's based on trust. Based on trust, correct? Trust is very important. Everyone, Vaso, Antonia, Rokas, law firm from Athens. Law is all about trust at the end of the day. So guys, let's get into it. 2 words that can get your team to work harmoniously together. 3 words that can cause your team to fail. The 2 words are radical transparency. The 3 words that can cause your team to fail is culture of silence. And it all comes down to what you have said, trust, of course, and it all comes down to you as a manager and as a leader, in the way you treat information and communication inside your organization. If you choose to keep information to yourself, either because you are scared of passing it on because somebody might take your job, or because you believe that your colleagues are not worthy enough, or they cannot do a great job as you do, then chances are that you contribute to a culture of silence. But if you open up channels of communication through your meetings and you pass on information with radical transparency, then chances are you increase the chances of having radical transparency inside your organization. And today I'm going to be giving you 3 tips. There are many, but because we want to keep this short, and then I will open it up to your questions, I will give you 3 tips on how to create radical transparency in order for you to base your relationship with your teammates on trust and enhance your communication and collaboration. So now let's get into a story before I go in analyzing the tips. The story is about Alan Mulally. Alan Mulally was the CEO that Ford, the grandson of Ford, brought in 2006 because Ford was losing a lot of money, Ford Motor Agency. And when Alan Mulally came in, Ford told him that he could fire anyone, from the board of directors to any confidant of Ford, Fred Ford, who was the grandson of Henry Ford, anyone. And Alan Mulally laughed and said, I don't want to fire anyone. I will emulate the success we had. I believe I will emulate the success we had at Boeing, because he was very successful during his time at Boeing. And we will do this not by threatening people, but by creating trust, building trust through radical transparency. So the first thing he did when he came in, he met with his managers, his top managers, and he created the business plan reviews, which was short meetings, concise meetings, where each and every manager would share their top 4 to 5 priorities in meetings. And they could either send them electronically and mark them with a green, yellow, or red mark. Green meant that all projects were going very well and they didn't need any help on their priorities. Yellow meant that we had some problems, but we will overcome them. I will overcome them as a manager. And red meant that I'm in the red, I'm having trouble. If they met face to face, the only thing they had to do is to raise a green card, everything is going well. A yellow card, I might need help, but it's going well. And a red card, it's not going well at all. So in the first meeting Alan Mulally had with his managers, he asked them about their top 5 priorities, and they all raised for all priorities a green card. So Alan Mulally stopped the meeting and said, if we're all in the green, how come we're losing 17 billion US dollars every year? So someone is not truthful. So I will go first, he said. You know, a car has 30,000 parts, and I know nothing about cars. And an aeroplane, when I was at Boeing, has 3 million parts, and I knew nothing about planes. So what I will do in meetings is I will sit back and listen to you and learn from you. And as soon as Alan Mulally opened up and he became very, very transparent, some of the managers, the first manager raised a red card. He said, I don't know, I'm not going well with my priorities with this particular priority, and I need help. These simple meetings, the business review plans, started generating more trust between the members through radical transparency instead of all becoming silent and contributing to a culture of silence. And in 2010, Alan Mulally turned a profitable year of 6.6 billion net income, and he had 16 quarters, non-stop profitable quarters. And this is a great story to understand that if you stick to a culture of silence, you will probably fail and your company can even go bust. We've seen examples, huge examples. But if you open up to radical transparency, then you will win. So let me give you some tips, short tips, and I'm sure you know many more on how to get your team to open up and yourselves and contribute towards radical transparency. Tip number 1, you as the leader, you need to be vulnerable. And I'm going to share a story that I only shared it once in my life. That was recently in Athens. I think it took a bit of guts to share this story, but I'll share it with you today. Every evening when Christine goes to put the twins to bed, our 40-month-old twins, I take Lucky together with my 9-year-old son, Rolando, for a walk. So as we were walking Lucky, Rolando told me, Dad, tell me a story. But don't tell me a fictional story, tell me a true story. And that evening, I saw in the news a building called Fisco Lotus Plaza that was on fire. So it came into my mind immediately, and I said, Rolando, you remember whilst we were watching the news, you remember that Fisco Lotus Plaza we were asking me that was on fire? Yes. He said, yes. And I said, Rolando, I'll tell you a story. When I was about your age, a bit older, around 10, 11, I took my bike and I went to Fisco Lotus Plaza. There was a gentleman, I believe Mr. Paraskevaidis, Paraskevopoulos, if I recall well, and he was selling cassettes. I don't know if it was Atari or Commodore at the time. I'm 50 years old. We're talking about 40 years ago. And I had money to buy only one cassette. So I don't know how I made the calculations. I stole the other one. And Mr. Paraskevopoulos saw me. And instead of calling the police, he knew my family. He called my dad directly. And I was saying this story to Rolando. Guys at the time, they could chastise us in any way they liked. There was no criminal offense. So from white, I turned completely red. I'm sorry to say that, but my late father gave me a lesson that I would never forget. So I said this to Rolando. I wasn't feeling proud. And then as we were walking, I noticed Rolando, my 9-year-old son, this guy here. I noticed him looking down, and I figured he wanted to tell me something. He said, Dad, can I tell you something? I said, yes, of course. But don't tell grandfather, don't tell grandmother, don't tell my mother. Last year, when I was with my grandfather and grandmother, my parents-in-law, by the sea, a lady dropped 20 euros, a note. I've seen it, and I waited for her to leave to pack her things from the sea, and I picked it up and I got it, and I never said anything to anyone. And at that time, I said, congratulations, son. He said, excuse me, what that? I said, congratulations for telling me this, for having the courage and the guts to tell me this. Is this the correct thing you've done, you believe? And he said, no, it's not the correct thing. Would you do it again? He said, no, I would never do it again. Why? Because it's not the correct thing, Dad, but I felt I needed to tell you. You know, it's been a year since last summer. He never told anyone about it. My feeling is that our son Rolando spoke up because I was vulnerable, because I told him a story where I failed and I felt badly. And even though I could look bad in his eyes, and I still might do, he chose to open up as well. So I'm not saying reveal all the skeletons in your closet, of course not. But if you open up to your team, if you are vulnerable with your team, chances are that they will be vulnerable in return. They will open up, and this contributes immensely towards a culture of not silence, but radical transparency. So it's not enough to be vulnerable yourself. And we go to the second tip. It is to allow others to be vulnerable too. And by others, I mean your team. You know, Ray Dalio is an amazing investor. And Ray Dalio has a company that's been going amazingly well. Let me show you the company. Let me remove the tip two. It's Bridgewaters. And in their first 15 words, look at what they say. Bridgewater's competitive edge is our pioneering workplace culture that relies on truthful and transparent communication to ensure that the best ideas win out. Ray Dalio is the person who came up with radical transparency, because when his team confides in him what they feel about the work he's doing, and when I say his team, I'm not talking about only his top managers, even the janitor. There are people that are lower down the hierarchy that confide in him that they're not happy with what he's doing. He always takes information on board. He never shoots the messenger. And he says that this has contributed to having one of the best investment funds and the most profitable investment fund in the world. So the question, the $1,000,000 question is, how can we allow others to be more vulnerable, our team? Well, let me tell you two ways, and it has to do with a game, and you can play this game. The first one is a game that I came up with it. The second one is a game that a Harvard professor came up with it. It's the mistake of the month. When I was working at our family business, Virardi, every month at the end of the month, I would run the mistake of the month. All my colleagues who came into the lecture, because we were lecturing every week, from the cleaning lady all the way to the CEO, we were delivering lessons and customer service experiences in order for them to improve. So every last Monday, we were running the mistake of the month. To get into the mistake of the month and win prizes that were dinner for two at a five-star hotel and various others, at the end of the last month, we were having a trip to Greece for two people. You had to do two things. You had to make a mistake. You had to recover from your mistake. You were not allowed to get into the competition if you haven't recovered. So let's say, for example, somebody came into the competition by forgetting a customer. He had a meeting on Thursday morning. He forgot about the customer. So he called the customer. The customer was upset and he said, Mr. Customer, I'm sorry about this. This is my mistake. No buts. And he visited the customer on a Saturday at his village or at his office or during the weekend in order to make up for it. So his colleagues voted how important that was it, how huge of a mistake that was it. And the winner that got the most points was the one that won the award. But we never punished any of my colleagues, ever. You know why? because it contributed to our income and profitability going up, because it contributed to loyalty going up. Customers were becoming from dissatisfied to satisfied to loyal, because as they say in medicine, where the bone breaks and it heals, it becomes stronger. So this was a mechanism to learn about our mistakes, to recover, to teach our people that you can recover, be vulnerable, tell us your mistake, and recover, because it leads to customer loyalty. And the second exercise is an exercise by a professor from Harvard, and I can send you this. Just ask for it. Drop me a note now if you want it. Amy Edmondson, just let me know and I will send it to you. And Amy has an amazing game to play with your team. And go figure, most companies do a eulogy. At the end of the year, they do a review and they tell you you've done well or you didn't do well. And if you're surprised with the results, it means something is going completely bad inside your organization because you are on a different page with your manager. So Amy came up with a few questions that are critical in order not to see how you're doing, but how we work, the way we work inside the department or inside the organization. Some of the questions are the following. I'm not going to mention all, I'm going to mention two. The first one is, what is the one thing you see me doing that's helping me best contribute to the team? The manager is asking his team. Then you can switch roles and your team can ask you. The other question is, what is one thing I do that's detracting from our success? Never shoot the messenger. Never start excuses. Let them talk. Also be cognizant of your body language. Don't start going like this when they're giving you their feedback. So it's a brilliant game you can play with your team. You can play it twice or three times within the year. And if you're open for improvement, this will improve you together with the mistake of the month, will improve you a lot. It will contribute towards radical transparency and move you away from a culture of silence. And then I'm going to mention the third tip, and please send me in which is your favorite tip so far. Listen to the third one and then send me in which is your favorite tip so far. And tip number 3, it's the other side of the coin, and which is about a culture of silence. How not to have a culture of silence, and what does a culture of silence constitute? Well, first and foremost, let me tell you about a few companies, 2 companies that had a culture of silence. The first is Boeing. For those of you who might recall, because it happened just 3 to 4 years ago, Boeing had tremendous competition and they wanted to upgrade their 777 model plane, and they called it the MAX 777. But they didn't want to have any expenses bringing in all the pilots and putting them in a simulator. So they said, we didn't do anything, we just upgraded it. But they installed a system called the MCAS system, which when the plane lifted up, it pushed the end side of the plane down and locked it for 10 seconds. And the pilots knew nothing about this. They didn't know because it didn't exist in the previous model. And in 4 months and 8 days, 346 people died in 2 plane crashes. And Boeing concealed it when the first crash happened. They knew it was the MCAS, but they never spoke out until a second plane came down. This is a culture of silence. And when the technicians of Boeing raised a concern saying that we need to bring in the pilots for a simulation, they told them to shut up. The same happened with NASA in 1986 and in 2003. In 1986, they had bad weather and the technicians voiced a concern not to lift off, to go into space. And they had a meeting with the technicians. And you know what the management said of NASA? Let's take the discussion offline. Stop recording and start discussing. And after a few hours, they came out and they said, okay, we're launching. There was a problem with a spare part called the O-ring, and 7 astronauts perished in front of their relatives' eyes after a few seconds. And again, in 2003, when the Columbia went up, there were problems before that. there was foam coming out from the engine onto the wing. And what did NASA do? Instead of solving it, they normalized the unnormalized. They said, it's okay, it's foam coming out. It's always been done this way. We always had foam coming out. And the technicians were saying, this is dangerous. We need to do something about it. And they told them to shut up. In 2003, when Columbia went up, foam came out, the wing broke. And you know what did they do? They didn't even notify the astronauts that they were going into certain death. They just said to themselves inside NASA, lock the doors and lock the data so we don't lose any data, and don't tell the astronauts they will be dying. And they perished. They all died. So, my dear friends, a culture of silence is, as I said earlier, not talking about and not distributing the information, even if it will hurt some people to find out, and not creating channels of communication. And yes, as Vaso Vardaki and all of you have said, it's based on the foundations of trust. Do you trust me enough to talk to me? Do I trust you enough as a leader not to shoot me if I tell you the news that you don't want to hear? If the answer is yes, then you are contributing towards radical transparency and you are creating a team that truly performs. So I'm about to take your questions. Let me know which was your favorite tip of them all. And let's see who's here. Tip number 1 was be vulnerable. Tip number 2 was allow your team to be vulnerable. And tip number 3, we talked about the opposite side of the coin, which is a culture of silence. Who's here? Let's see who's here. Antonia, great to see you. Good day. Aristos Pandeli, hello, my friend, from Dubai. Tonia Theodorou, Dimitris. Yes, of course, Spiros, of course. Just drop me your, send me a note inside LinkedIn, Facebook, or wherever you're watching it. Drop me your email address and I'll send it to you, of course. Yes, Andre, of course you will have it. I need your email address and I will send it to you. Of course, Andonis. Of course, let's see. I think we have a question. I like the first tip, Antonia. It's not easy for a manager leader to show vulnerability towards their team. They believe that they need to show the opposite in order to be trusted and admired. Most of them, that's exactly what they believe. Guys, let's see. Andreas says tip number 1. It's a good tip to take into consideration. It wasn't easy to share this one with you guys, but yes, we even have people from Delhi coming in. Thank you, Radha, correct? Radha Sharma. Thank you for being here. Who else is here? Great. So guys, if you don't have any more questions, and if you do, please post them. If you share, if you like this episode and you want to share it, just know that you get a chance to win a one-on-one coaching with me, live streaming. We can do a session one-on-one on Zoom. Oh, Jacob, how are you doing, my friend? Good morning from London. Even London is here. India, London, everyone is here. Athens. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in, and have a great